Hey YouTube, welcome back to Arcane Armory. I'm John. Today we're working on part 3 of our 1903 Springfield series. And today we're going to inlet parts of the stock that are keeping the firearm from functioning as it's designed. Number 1, our bolt hits our stock here. And 2, there was no cutout made for our magazine disconnect switch over here. We want to cut that down so that it actually works. There's supposed to be a third position on this. And once again, I'm sorry, we're in our metal pole barn, so we're going to hear the traffic going by and the leaves on the roof. So that's just what it is. So anyway, why are we going to bother with this? Well, if we ever want to have this firearm appraised, or if we ever want to sell it, it's a Sporter 1903, so it's already in a disadvantaged group. So like anybody else in a disadvantaged group, it's got to be able to work, and it's got to be able to shoot. So let's make it shoot. So our first thing we're going to do is we're going to pop out our magazine spring. It's going to make our life just a little bit easier when we go to take all this apart and put it back together several times as we do this process. You want to be just a little bit careful so we don't screw up the bluing. Using a magnetic tray. Now, normally I would use a parts bin during disassembly, but this is a very straightforward firearm and there's not that many parts to it. So it's not really necessary for this. We'll let our magazine well trigger guard. So we have our action. We're going to leave the bolt in that. And so we have our stock. And so we need to inlet the bolt relief and the magazine disconnect relief. We've got a round file. We're just going to take a piece of Scotch-Brite. We're going to clean that slot out. So what we want to do is leave our bolt in. We'll set our action back in the stock. Make sure that that is seated as if it were screwed in. Now we're going to use a little bit of what's called Prussian blue. And it's this little tube. It's from Primitex. Commonly it's called inletting black, but in this case it's just a blue dye. It's kind of a grease. And we can put it on the metal parts and then close them, and then when it hits the wood, it'll leave a mark where it's hitting the wood. That tells us where to remove material. If we file away from the stock, it tends to pull the wood out and leave chunks. If we file in, it tends to push it towards the wood and sand the chunks off. So now we can hear the difference in the action. It sounds like metal on metal, not metal on wood. And our bolt handle is clearing the stock all the way down. So all we have to do is clean up the shape, make it look right, and we'll be done with this part. Okay, so now that we're done with that, we're satisfied with the result. We're going to flip it around, take it back apart, and we're going to do the magazine release. Now that we're pretty close to making this fit, we need to add a thumb groove so we can actuate it with a pair of gloves when we want to take this thing hunting. Test fit it again with our thumb notch. Make sure it's all the way down in there. Okay, well, now we have inlet our bolt handle, so we have a nice metal on metal click instead of metal on wood. And we have inlet our magazine disconnect switch, so we can actually use that function now. So when the magazine disconnect is on, that means the magazine is on. There's a little label on here that says on. It means the magazine is operational, so it will feed from the magazine. This bolt has to be forward in order to switch this. You cannot put it back here and switch it. So bolt forward, and then middle position allows us to remove the bolt, and then bottom position will turn off the magazine. So for demonstration, I have a dummy round because I don't have any snap caps, so just use a dummy. Push that into the magazine, and it will not strip that from our magazine. As we close the bolt, turn the magazine on. Now it picks that round up and we'll feed it. So now we can go into getting some sights on this so we can test fire it. I'm going to go ahead with these old Picatinny mounts, and we'll see how they work. We'll probably end up lapping the scope rings and see if we can get a group out of this thing. I'm just going to put a cheap placeholder scope on it, get 5 rounds at 100 yards, see what it does, and then we'll go on with our improvements from there. Alright, so the last thing that we're going to do in this video is we're going to lap our scope rings, because we don't know what these scope mounts look like and whether or not they are properly aligned, as they were done post-manufacture. So somebody went in here and drilled and tapped these, and we want to make sure that they're not going to mess up our scope when we go to mount our nice expensive scope on our, what will be, hopefully, a nice expensive rifle. Also, I would not use these rings in practice because they are so high up off the line of the bore. Getting the sights down lower is going to have a positive impact on our maximum point blank range, which we'll get into in another video, but it is a pretty critical element of all shooting, not just hunting rifles and rifles with scopes. Okay, so after about a half an hour of that, taking it apart, clean it up, measure it, put it back together, and do some more lapping. It's a little bit tedious, but it does work. And so now, as we can see here, our alignment bars are in a lot better alignment here. So horizontally, they are almost perfect, and vertically, there is an acceptable amount of deviation there. So the point of this exercise is this rifle's not going to live with these rings forever. I have a cheapy scope that I got from another program that I did earlier, and so we're going to use that at first just to get some groups on paper. And my road out front is like a freight train of cargo. So we're going to put the cheapy scope in, we're going to get it leveled, we're going to get it dialed in. We're going to verify, obviously, that there's clearance for our bolt handle with that scope. And we're going to try and get some groups on paper and see how this thing shoots. After that, we're going to go into a mock bedding, and we'll try and get the action raised a little bit, get the barrel floated, and hopefully that'll yield us a little better accuracy result, but we'll check it out first. We should give the old girl a shot. So, if you don't mind, hit the like button and subscribe. I'd appreciate that. And it won't be 3 weeks before the next video, I promise. So, next time you see us, we should be putting some rounds down range. Thanks a bunch.